Hey, I'm Hunter from SkillThrive, and welcome to the second lesson in this three-part course where you'll design and code a simple About Me landing page. In this lesson, you'll write the HTML for the design from lesson 1. Once you're done, you'll move on to writing the CSS in lesson 3. You'll find all the lessons linked for this course in the description. Feel free to follow along and write the code as we go, but you can also download the final code and design on skillthrive.com for a small price. This helps me as a creator to continue making design and development courses for you to watch at no cost. With that covered, let's get started. So before we get started, I want to talk about the code editor that I'm going to be using in this course, which is Visual Studio Code. Now you can download this for Mac and Windows, and the reason you might want to download this is because I want to be using some extensions that come with Visual Studio Code. Now, if you use a code editor that you prefer and you're really comfortable with this, like feel free to not use this, but you can just head to code.visualstudio.com in order to download that. So once you download that, let's go ahead and create the folder where our project is going to live. And I'm just going to put this, in my case, on the desktop. So I'm going to come in here and just create a new folder and then call this just About Me. And then I can select this folder and just drag this onto Visual Studio Code down here. And that is going to open a new project in Visual Studio Code. So let's go ahead and just maximize this screen. And I'm just going ahead and just exit out this welcome, come into the About Me section, and then click here to add a new file. Here is we're going to add index.html, which is our home page. Then add a new file and call this style.css. And let's go ahead and talk about the extensions that I'm going to be using. So if we come into this icon here, and if I expand this window just a little bit, I'm going to come in and just search for live server. And right here, you can see that it has 4.5 million downloads, 5 stars. So it's something that a lot of people use. And the reason a lot of people use it is that it allows you to write the code in Visual Studio Code and actually see it rendered live on the browser without having to go in and refresh that. So it's a way faster way of developing and seeing those changes in real time. So once you install that, the next one I'm going to be using is HTML Boilerplate. You can see here that this is also a highly used and rated just boilerplate thing. And now it's actually really easy to use and it doesn't really do that much, but it's really nice to just kind of have this boilerplate ready to go out of the box when you start writing your code. Now, let's go ahead and just exit out of those once you have those installed. And we can go ahead and just click here to get rid of that. And to get started with the boilerplate, I'm just going to type in HTML. You can see here this HTML5 boilerplate. So once we click that, we have this boilerplate that's ready to go. And let's go ahead and just start with the title. So let's call this Jessica Lyons. And we can do like content marketer. On the description, we can add just a really brief description like a little bit more descriptive. So content marketer from Atlanta, Georgia. And then we can bring in our style sheet, which is just going to be style.css. And then we can get rid of this script tag and start writing our HTML. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just create a new div, and this div is going to have a class called wrapper. And this is just going to go around all of our content. The next thing we're going to do is create a section, and this section is going to have a class called top. Then we can create a new div, and this can have a class equal to top content. And within this, we want a p tag with a class of subtitle. And let's go ahead and just give this the name of content marketer. So now that we have a couple of things added here, let's go ahead and boot up live server so we can actually start seeing this. So to do that, I'm going to come in and expand this, come into my index HTML, right click and say open with live server. So that's going to launch this into my project. And let's go ahead and just set this to the right side of our screen and then set this to the left side. and start just kind of, continuing to write that code. So the next thing we want to do is we want to bring in an h1 tag, which is going to be the title of our name. So we'll do h1, class is title. And here we can write, hi, I am. And then we can use the break tag in order to break this into the next line. That's annoying. So let's go ahead and just change this manually. Okay. Hi, I am Jessica Lyons. Now, in order to get that that underline just under Jessica, what we want to do is create a span tag and then give this a class equal to underline. And then we can take Jessica and then just put her in between the span. And the reason we're using span over, another element name like a section or a div is that span is a generic inline container. So the reason you can see here that it's in between the h1 tag, and then we can use that span, give it a class, and then use that to style specifically just the name part, the first name part, which is Jessica in our case. So that's just a quick idea of why we're using span instead of something else. So if we save that, we can see now that we have hi, I am Jessica Lyons, and we can have that breaks that off into the next line. Now we don't see the underline because we haven't written any of the CSS yet, so that's why you're not seeing that. Now the next thing we want to do is I'm going to add a div here for the social. So let's do div class equals social. And I'm going to create another div. And this div is going to have a class equal to social item. And I'm just going to copy this again because we're going to have two social items. And on this one, we want the Instagram icon. Now, what we're going to be using is Font Awesome. So we need to come into Font Awesome. And we can click here to start using for free. And then go ahead and copy this link here, or this this tag, and then we need to come into our head right underneath our style sheet and then paste that in. And that's going to allow us to use Font Awesome directly into our HTML. So now what we need to do is search here for the icon that we want, which is going to be Instagram. We can select the Instagram that we want to use. And then up here you have this little icon HTML that you can click the copy and then just drop it into your code like that. And that's everything we need to do for that. And next we can do the actual information, where we're going to actually have this as a clickable thing, which is going to have a class of social copy. And the href is just going to be a dummy href, or a link that's not really going to go anywhere. But go ahead and, if you're actually using this for Instagram, send this to your Instagram account. And we can go ahead now and just type in her Instagram handle, which is Jessica_Lyons. So this is going to copy this I and A tag, paste that in, and what we want to change here, let's go ahead and change the email because that's going to be quick. And we can do Jessica at jessicalyons.com. And on this href, we want to do mail to, and then Jessica at jessicalyons.com. So let's go ahead and save that and make sure how this is looking. So the reason we use mail to and then the colon and then the name is that once we click on this, it's going to launch our email provider, and then actually have an email ready to go with the two of her address already in there. So this is kind of a quick way to make this this link actually usable for an email. All right, so let's not save that. And now that we did that, we want to change the icon here. And to do that, we need to come back into Font Awesome, and I'm going to search for mail. So once mail comes up, there's a ton of them here. We want the envelope. And then I can click here to copy that, select this I tag, and then paste that in. There we go. So if we come back and then save this, we can see that that icon is now changed. And now there's this, one more thing we want to do, and that is to create a section here right after this one for the top profile. Now I'm actually going to create the div right before the section ending. So that's going to be just div class equals top profile. And this one's not going to have anything in it because we're just going to use a background image in CSS. So that's going to hold the image of Jessica Lyons. So now that we have that, that's basically everything we need to do as far as writing the HTML. You can see that it was really simple to just build that structure and that content that we want to actually start styling in the next video. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the next video where we'll write the CSS for this course.